Yeah, all right. So, what's happening, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Daddy's Right Here live. Yeah, we got a good one today. So, if you don't have your big boy and big girl panties on, you need to go put them on now, right? Yeah, you need to go put them on. And as I always tell y'all, this show is not for the thin skin. If you are not looking to grow, if you are not looking to further develop your IQ, your EQ, listen, this ain't the place. This is not the place, man, right? Because I'm just going to tell you the truth. I'm just going to tell you like it is, right? Because I had to face those same realities in my life, right? And I know the benefit in truly confronting and challenging self. You don't confront and challenge yourself, it's going to be people all around you confronting and challenging you, and you are always going to find yourself at odds with them. Always. There's no way around it. You're never going to have a healthy relationship. You're not going to experience healthiness by yourself. You're ultimately going to be by yourself because of your lack of personal growth and development. Plain and simple. I can't put it to you any other way. That's your reality. And there are people who live their lives just that way and call themselves okay with it, but they're not really okay with it, but they force themselves to be okay with being in a place, being in a space that they put themselves in, but they make it seem like other people put them in that space. They're faulting other people for their conditioning, and that's just not how it goes. That's not realistic thinking. That is irrational. That is irrational thinking. It's exactly what it is. So for the people who are saying that they're single because they haven't found a good man, they haven't found a good woman, that people this and people that, I get it. Trust me, I do. I do. I'm working off marriage number 4 and working into marriage number 5. I get it. And this is not to blame anybody. It's no blame. But just remember, happiness is your responsibility. Plain and simple. Doesn't have to mean that the other person was anything other than who they were or who they are. It doesn't. It's just two good people trying to find their way. And I don't have to accept your bad behavior. I just don't. It's not a requirement. There's yielding, there's compromise. Those things happen naturally in any relationship. I am not obligated to stay in a situation where you want to be in a place that doesn't yield any growth of this relationship. The relationship has to grow, but if you're not growing as an individual, how can you be facilitating or nurturing or fostering any kind of growth in your relationship? It just don't happen that way. It just don't happen that way. So you can say anything you want to say to yourself to convince yourself to be in the place that you are, to be in the space that you are. You can tell yourself anything you want to tell yourself. But I can tell you that it's wasted energy when one person is seeking personal growth and the other person is intentionally avoiding personal growth. I can tell you that it's not going to be a good end to it. It's just not. That's your reality. But the end for the person who is seeking to continually grow and develop as a person, the end is not as devastating. We work through it and we keep it moving because we know that there's no benefit in holding on to it. There's no benefit in holding on to it. There's no benefit in holding on to the person. It's no benefit to holding on, trying to get things to change and go in another direction when it's not. When it's not. And this is one of the biggest pitfalls, the biggest pitfalls in single life, right? Because what ultimately happens is when you're single, you think that you're free to mingle. What does that mean? Because when you talk about freedom, being a single person, that means no commitment. That's what you tell yourself. There's no commitment. There's no obligation to have to respond to certain situations. Well, you don't have to respond to anything, and even in marriage, if you choose not to, you don't have to do anything. You do or you don't do. So you can take that one off of the list of things that benefit me in being single. I don't care whether you're single, whether you're with somebody, you still have a level of commitment. And you still have the right to do or not to do. That's your God-given right. Nobody can take that from you. The government tries, but that's a whole nother show. But when we look at relationships between parents, relationships between two people who had no intentions on becoming boyfriend and girlfriend, so they say, right? We're talking about a whole different animal of a sort, right? Because these two people got together and did the single-minded thing, right? They did the single-minded thing. I can be with anyone who I want to. That's freedom for that person. I can go out with who I want to as many times as I want to. If I want to see them, I see them. If I don't want to see them, I don't see them. But here's the quagmire we keep finding ourselves in, right? We sleep with each other. We have unprotected sex. We had no intention whatsoever in committing to one another, but we didn't have any precautions in place to keep a pregnancy from happening. To keep a pregnancy from happening. No birth control that you're taking is 100%. The only one that works is abstinence. Abstinence, or you've had the clipping. For men get clipped. Women have their procedure. Right? Hysterectomy, vasectomy, right? Those are the only things that guarantee no pregnancy. So when you make a conscious decision to have unprotected sex with someone who you do not choose to have a commitment to, you're setting yourself up. You're falling for your own Jedi mind trick because it's rolling dice. It's rolling dice. But you convince yourself that it's not going to happen. You have a partially good time because in the back of your mind, you're hoping that he pull out, he don't come, or if he comes, you don't get pregnant. Dude is thinking, well, it feels real good. I don't want to pull out because if I pull out, then I ain't going to get that feeling that I'm looking for because there's a beginning and an ending. And the ending is not just to squirt. The ending is to feel a whole spirit wrapped around your penis. There's a whole thing that goes on with that. See, you're in somebody's spirit. There are two spirits connecting. And this is where people are disconnected because when you're not connected to your spirit, you don't understand that the act itself is a spiritual act. Yeah. It's two souls fusing. Yeah. Listen to the lyrics of my song Young. The song Young is about me, 13 years old, having sex with an adult. Yeah, she was 22. My first love. First love. You understand? And we want to make it a physical connection because of what you convince yourself of, because you sought out this particular image in your mind of who you wanted to have sex with, right? They smell good, they look good, they must taste good. That's not always true. Another show. But that's what the focus was on. The focus had nothing to do with anything other than you wanted to feel good. Both of you wanted to feel good. But then the phone call is made, is received. I'm pregnant. And that whole conversation of, well, what you gonna do happens. Sometimes for one is excited because now she ain't going nowhere. He ain't going nowhere. I got him now. But that's not what you wanted. Now you're thinking how good of a father. But before we even get there, right? Keeping it overwhelms both parties. More so the woman because she has to carry the child. Life changes now. But you said your value was I was going to be single because this is free. And you want to stay with that because now you have to make a decision. Am I going to hook up with dude? Or are we going to become this, that, the other? Is that what that means? Or are we going to co-parent? Or am I even going to allow the co-parenting, the co-parenting to take place? Am I going to say, well, no, I'm not dealing with you. I'll take care of the child myself. I don't need you. Where in any of this is the value of life? Where is it? You're thinking about yourself. That's why it's called selfish, right? You're thinking about yourself. You were thinking about having a good time, feeling good, and walking away. That's what you were thinking about. You weren't thinking about the fact that if I get pregnant by this person, if I get this person pregnant, this is what this is going to be about. You weren't thinking about none of that. Now you're in the mode of thinking about whether to keep it or not, right? Now we start going through this whole conversation about at what point is this a human being? Which typically comes from the mouths of so-called believers. So-called believers. So you believe in life. You're pro-life until it comes to you having to make a decision as to whether you want to have a child by this person. Until it comes to having to decide whether you're going to allow that other parent to be actively involved. Whatever level of active it is. The child is not considered anywhere in there. That little human being that is soon going to be an adult who is going to grow up, who's going to have this trauma put upon them because of what you, as the mother and father, failed to do, mother and or father failed to do in the beginning. In the beginning. I didn't think about none of those things. I'm not the only one. There are millions of children out there who are in situations where both of the parents are acting like fools. There's millions of children out there who don't have access to the other parent by choice, because many choose not to because they don't want to deal with this stuff here that should have been dealt with before you decided you wanted to have a good time. It should have been dealt with, but it wasn't. So then you become holier than thou. Well, he ain't this and he ain't that. He ain't never did this. He ain't never did that. But he obviously did you pretty damn good because you're pregnant by him, and vice versa. This is about both parties. So if I say something and I don't include the other person in the statement, know that the other person is automatically included because both of you are parents. So you're going to be included. But some of you will take that approach because it's easy. It's easy to blame. It's easy to defend the position that you took about somebody else's life. You took that position. You took that position. Nobody made you do it. In the cases of sexual assault, it's different, obviously. Let's put that out there because you got some of y'all who take stuff and run with stuff because that's what you want to do. Oh, well, he didn't say, and he must be. I don't personally give a damn about what you say about me. I really don't. That's something you have to deal with. I'm good in my skin. But when you sit back and you blame other people for your situation and you condemn the other parent because you don't feel as though that they're up to par to do what you think they should do and how you think they should behave and act as a parent, that's a problem. That's a problem. Because you should have thought about that before you laid up with the person and had unprotected sex. I was guilty of it. I wasn't thinking about parenthood, let alone fatherhood. I was just being in the hood. Literally, the hood. So when these things happen, right? Because there's situationships. It wasn't a relationship. There was no intention, so you say, of a relationship. There was no intention of that. We were just getting it in. That's all we were doing. We was getting it in. We was having fun. I was busting a nut because that's all you're doing. Let's call it what it is. Because after it's said and done, you got what you wanted. You feel that relief. The endorphins were flowing, right? Plain and simple. And now it's over, and you want to go back to a normal life. And even without pregnancy, there's a rupturing of one's spirit because of the feeling that comes along with it. It was good. I achieved my goal because a lot of times that's what it is. That's what you are. You're somebody's goal. Yeah, get that. Get that. Look at the thinking. Look at the thinking. Look at the thinking. I'm going to get that. What did you get? You got more than you bargained for when there's a pregnancy. Yeah. But then when the other person catches feelings, right, then there's another problem. Because, like, how do you give of yourself to me in this way and don't want me? She reinforced inside of me between the stars is where you want to be. 13, a virgin. Yeah.
And this big and and I look in my feeds and all the time, and the whole thing with the titties out, this whole BBL explosion that has happened, right? The whole camel toe exposure kind of thing. It's like everything is sex, and so-called responsible thinking and acting people, right, don't include this behavior in the conversation and get offended if you bring it up. Well, I can wear what I want to wear. I have the right to wear what I want to wear. You do have the right to wear what you want to wear. You absolutely do. But the question is, why are you wearing it like that? What value are you showing that you have of yourself? If it was a porn site, I can understand that, right? But you're emulating what you see on stages, what you see entertainers doing, what you think is sexy. Everything is sex. When you're without it, you need to look at yourself. You need to look at yourself when you get thirsty. Yeah, men get thirsty too. Look at yourself when you get thirsty. What are you willing to sacrifice? Where's your value then? See, all this cognitive dissonance going all over the place is why we're all so twisted up. It's why we're all so twisted up. We constantly compromise our own values, but we do it when we feel like it. But the value of sustaining a relationship between me and the other parent for the benefit of the child having a balanced life don't even matter. I don't like it. I don't like her. Never liked her. That night was yeah, that was it. When I got thirsty, I went to get a drink. That's all. That's all. That's all clubs are. Clubs are just meat markets. Bars are just meat markets. The person who you least were attracted to, you were least attracted to, right? At 9 o'clock at the bar became the most attractive by 11 o'clock. Because the feeling is what you were looking for. You wanted that release. That's all. And when you get up in the morning, did I do that? Right? Things that you don't want to talk about. These are things we don't want to talk about openly because it just makes us look so bad. It's disgusting. Pathetic. You can't cover stuff like that up with designer clothes. You can't cover stuff up with you just can't. You know? You just can't. You can put all the designer clothing on you want, look all fly and everything, but you can't cover that up. Everybody knows. You think it's a secret. But what about the child? See, my first child, right? I was in the street. My second child, still about the street. A third child, still about the street. I got condemned by the mothers who got me off the street. I mean, I wasn't like living like in this, like I wasn't homeless person kind. I was homeless, but I wasn't like living on the street like that. I was just pillar to post. You got a crib? Okay, I'm staying there this year. That's the kind of you're making paper. Okay, good. You fit the description, right? I was doing my thing, being irresponsible. People call it being young, and that's what young people do. No, that's not what all young people do. There's more young people out there who are actually virgins than you really believe. It's a lot of virgins out there, it really is, because a lot of them are getting it. This generation is getting it. And I think that also plays into sexuality as well. But that's not a show that I'm going to have today, tomorrow, any other day, because people are too thin-skinned. People don't want to have those conversations because you're always anti something when you're pro something, or if you're anti something, all these sensitive people running around. And yeah, I posted something on. I like comedy. I love comedy. Right? If you ever been to a real comedy show, right? Everything is on the table. Now people, oh, you're homophobic. Oh, you're anti-Jewish. Oh, you're anti-Muslim. Oh, you're racist. You know, it's comedy, folks. Laugh at yourself some damn times. But that's a whole nother show. I'm definitely going to have that show. I'm definitely going to have that show because I'm so sick of everything being turned into racism. But today's topic, it's an article from Psychology Today: How to Recover from a Situationship. And the article is written by April Eldemeyer, LMFT, right? She does this whole thing on couples thrive. You know, I think it's a book that she wrote. One, yes, you have the right to feel sad, right? So there are key points in this article that we're going to cover. Be gentle with yourself as you allow yourself to grieve. Yes, there is a grieving process that takes place when you are involved in a situation ship. But just remember, you're the one who decided to take this trip. Remember? Yeah. You wanted what you wanted. So you made the decision that you wanted to be part of this ship, this situation ship, because it's a situation, right? But again, sometimes feelings get involved, and sometimes children are involved. So once you come to the conclusion that you have a part in this, then you can begin to see where the grief process takes place, because the grief process happens in different ways. When somebody dies, right, disbelief kicks in. Oh man, I can't believe it. Like, wow. I was just talking to him yesterday, right? And you still like, you heard from somebody that person is dead, and you seen the body, they're dead, but the disbelief is still there. I remember when a friend of mine died, Charles. I still thought that I saw Charles, like, and maybe I did because of my connection with God, because of my spiritual beliefs. I could have very well been seeing, but it's disbelief. Sometimes you think, oh, no, 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 the dude looks just like him. Oh, I swore that was Charles, but that person is gone. So the grieving process is a matter of, okay, I can't believe I'm pregnant by this dude. I can't believe I allowed myself to get pregnant. And you go through that, right? That's the disbelief. The disbelief, somewhere in there, it turns into anger. Now you get angry at the person who's gone. How dare they left. They I was supposed to go before them, and now I have to live my life without them. And with these situationships, it's a matter of, I can't believe I'm pregnant. I can't believe I got her pregnant. I can't believe I put myself in this situation. Now I'm angry because now you start thinking about all the woulda, coulda, shouldas. You start thinking about all those things that you were moving toward. All your hopes, dreams, and aspirations are now going to be put on hold or just interrupted altogether because now you have to raise a child. Your lifestyle has to change altogether. Now the money that you were making, that you were spending all on yourself, doing this, buying all this, and living in this this nice small, apartment, comfortable apartment. Now that environment has to have bedding. It has to include a little one. All the little things that you have sitting around can no longer just sit around like that. They're not going to stay nice and neat anymore. It's not going to be that way anymore. And dude is like, okay, well, I can't afford a bigger place. Well, how am I going to be able to? And now you're angry. Now this is where the other stuff starts playing out. Because we've gotten past if you're going to keep it or not, so on and so forth. Some people just say like, do whatever you're going to do. You know, I'll do my best, if anything at all. But nah, it ain't mine, and so on and so forth. But I never denied any of my children. Never questioned my children. You know, hard to if you see my children and you look at me. It's really hard to anyway. But I never questioned because that just wasn't the value that I had. Even though I was about that street life, I wasn't about not caring. Anybody who I was involved with, I cared for. Right, that's the kind of dude I am. I'll fall in love like, boop, I'm in love. Right, and uh, yeah, and even if we just having a situation shit, I'm gonna do my best to look out for you too if you need something. That's the kind of guy I am. But all of these things change, and all this goes on in your head, and your spirit is immensely affected by it. And you haven't even looked at the physiology of uh, this situationship, the physiological effects that happen. Some people get literally sick. You ever been so sick because just fathoming the thought of having a child by this person, with this person, for this person? It's like, because you don't even like the person, especially after last night. It wasn't even good. Oh, it wasn't. But no planning is had. No discussion about the life of the child and what the child is going to have to endure. Even Pop said. So more anger, and depending on where you are in the stages of this grief, this talking allowing yourself to grieve, depending on where you are in the stages of grief, right, will really determine how this plays out between you and the other person. Because now you have to defend your position of being single, not wanting to be committed, not wanting to be tied down, not wanting to have all of these things, but not taking the responsibility to ensure that didn't happen. Now you're angry at yourself. You're angry at the other person for doing it. You're angry at yourself for getting yourself in this position. You see all this anger. That's why it says here, be gentle with yourself. These are key points. Be gentle with yourself as you allow yourself to grieve. Because if you're not gentle with yourself, how do you think it's going to play out with the other person? And how do you think it's going to play out with the child when the child gets here? While you're carrying the child, because people often forget about that part. The whole 9 months is just hell between the two of you. There's no reconciliation of the what happened between us. Let's fix this first. This is what we did as adults. Let's fix this. Let's fix the situation shit first. Because no matter how this story ends, if you keep the child, your mom, I'm dad. That's never going to change. That's never going to change. But you go through 9 months of hell. Who else do you think goes through that hell? Yeah, the fetus. So you go through hell for 9 months, take the fetus through hell for 9 months, and then when the child comes out, you wonder why they act that way. My sister and I grew up in an environment of domestic violence, right? I have anxiety and depression, right? So I know that that's a result of the stress put upon my mother. It may also be some hereditary in there, but the mother's condition, right? Her discomfort affects the fetus. See, these are the things that are not being thought about. These are the things that are not being thought about. The anger that has encapsulated your being because you were in this situation just plays out all over the place. And it's affecting the fetus. Every time the mother sees you, if she wants no part of you, if she never had an intention of doing, her blood pressure goes up, her stress level increases, and it affects the fetus. And this is what you're doing as the father. Her taking herself through, everything that she's going through, carrying the child, wanting to listen, okay, I'm carrying, I'm keeping it. I just need you to stay the hell away from me. It's not right. It's not fair. And it's not going to make life for the child any better when the child comes. The other key point, find someone you trust to talk to about your experience to get a different perspective, right? What happens in this case is the child becomes that person you can talk to, that you believe you can talk to. So you start telling the child about your experience with the other person, with the mother, with the father. And most of what comes from you is negative because you never had any intention on getting pregnant. So you begin to have that conversation, right? You begin to what do you call it? A vent to the child. Or when you vent, you're sitting in front of the child talking to somebody in front of you or on the phone in front of the child. What do you think the child thinks about themselves? You're sitting down talking all this negative stuff about the father, about the mother and their presence. Did you forget you put yourself in the situation? Did you forget that part? That's the part you should be talking to the child about. That's the part you should be talking to the child about. But instead, that person is the person that you can trust because you're too embarrassed, you're too ashamed, you're too guilt-ridden to tell the truth to somebody else about what you did. So you spend your time talking negatively to those people about this other parent because of the decisions you made. So now you make them the bad guy, bad girl, whatever you want to call it. You allow others to influence your thinking about that other person. None of y'all are thinking about the damn child. You say you are, but you're not. You can't be telling me that you're thinking about the well-being of the child when you should have thought about that before getting pregnant. You picked up somebody from the damn bar. You met somebody in Walmart. You met somebody at the damn the self-car wash, and went home and slept with them without protection. How the hell do you sit down and put all these negative negative labels upon the other person because of what you decided to do? You don't have to like me. Did you like the person you bought that you spent $150 for a pair of sneaks from? Did you like them? Did they like you? No, but you bought the sneakers every year when new ones came out. You spend money all the time with people who don't give a damn about you. And you don't say anything negative about them. And anything negative said about them, most cases, it don't stop you from making a purchase from them. But here you are, a parent. Because now this is the other part you have to understand. You're a parent. That's a parent. Children need their parents. 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 Plain and simple. I don't care what you convince yourself of about the relationship or lack thereof between you and your parent. That was a choice. I learned that early on. It was a choice for me not to have a relationship with my father. And I'm so glad that I went and sought to have one with him before he was murdered. I'm glad I did. I'm not the guy who's going to tell you, well, do it now because you know you only get one. No. How about being responsible to the fact that that egg came from them too, and you're here because of that. What you choose to do with your life is entirely up to you. It's entirely up to you. The other key point: reflect on boundaries that matter to you to help ensure that you enter any future relationship with greater intention and peace of mind. The suggestion here is that you have poor intentions, and we already talked about your poor intentions. There was no peace of there's no real peace of mind when you're living a single life, but you're being free to see who you want to see. There's no peace in that. There's no peace in that. It isn't. Ducking and dodging and lying and deceiving and manipulating all this, and there's no peace in that. Come on. No peace of mind in that. You can't tell me you putting your head on some fluffy pillow at the end of the day when that's the lifestyle that you're having. So let's talk about it a little more. A situationship, to the article, is a romantic and or sexual relationship that isn't formally defined. You may know it by its other pop culture references like friends with benefits, fun buddies, or booty call. People in situationships generally aren't exclusively committed to each other and typically aren't expected to fork over a ton of emotional investment. But while this casual, non committal intimacy may have its benefits for some, people at certain stages in their lives, I'm sorry, I put a comment right there. Let me read that again. But while this non committal intimacy may have its benefits for some people at certain stages in their lives, situationships also have their fair share of conflict and uncertainty and can be painful to walk away from. Here are three things that can help you move on once you or your friend with benefits decides to end the situationship. Right? And it's funny because here it says how you and your friend with benefits decide to end your situationship. Right? But it doesn't talk in depth about how you begin the situationship, which is why I put the cart aside and got the horse in front of you. So you can see how that situationship came about. Right? Because in many cases, in most cases, people get the cart before the horse. Yeah. You get the cart before the horse. You load it up with all these ideas and attitudes and beliefs and values about single life. And you pride yourself on being single. Meanwhile, you're ripping the soul from other people, with your antics, right? And what all and another thing that happens a lot is that we get into these situationships, and then we assume that it's more than what it is, and that's another part that has to be looked at as well. Because I can tell you, I'm 63. I'm about to go on 64, so I'm no spring chicken. I've been around the block. I have an understanding of life. And I can tell you how many situations, situationships I've been in where the other person thought, or I thought, that it was more than what it was because of a value that I believe. Well, we're getting it in, right? We're seeing each other regularly. I mean, when it's good, you do that. But then the frequency of the visit becomes grounded in the familiarity with the person. Therefore, you look towards that person more often and more frequently in situations where you were typically not, only if it's good. Um, but it's important to understand that you did this on your own. Doing it with somebody doesn't give you carte blanche to blame them. You made this decision on your own. So how dare you go and badmouth the other person because of your inability to accept your role in what transpired between the two of us. And now this is the situation we have. You didn't care about any of those things about my character before you slept with me. Only thing you wanted to just fulfill your thirst. And here we are. So we need to work at this. Part of working through this is first getting through this period here of I put myself, because this is what this is actually saying. I don't know whether you're understanding this or not. This is what this is actually saying. You put yourself in a situation shit because of your own selfish wants and needs, right? You put yourself in a situation. So you don't beat yourself up about someplace you put yourself, but at least take ownership for the fact that you put yourself here, right? At least take ownership for that. Don't beat yourself up. This is what you did. We all make mistakes. We all do things that are out of order, out of alignment with, our true value system. And we grow and we develop and we mature and we get better, right? Part of that process has to include the other parent, right? Having an open and honest conversation. But you don't even find this in so-called relationships, in marriages. You don't even find this kind of submission to acceptance of self and the disclosure to the other person. A lot of times we still don't even know who the hell we're with. We find out things later because the person, it's just, listen, if something exists about your character, if something exists about your being, there are things in your past that you listen. If it remains in your present, you sure as hell better talk to your partner about it because it's going to be a painful situation. It's going to be a very difficult situation if you bring up something later in years, right, about you to your partner. It's going to be the most hurtful thing because you couldn't just simply be honest enough with listen. Let me take this, right? I got something that I haven't discussed with you that I really think that you deserve to know. You know, and you have to put it out, and you have to give that other person an opportunity to accept or reject whatever it is that you bear. Oftentimes, people are blindsided. And then you want to get angry with them because they don't accept what it is that you blindsided them with. I don't have to. They don't have to accept anything. Sure, the first thing you say, why didn't you tell me this before? Well, it depends on the condition of the individual, the maturity, the emotional intelligence of the individual as to how that's going to be dealt with. It's simple, but difficult. Um, Back to the article. Allow yourself to grieve. You might think you have no right to feel sad when a situationship ends because you believe the relationship was never real or legitimate in the first place. But here's the first thing. Human hearts can't read romantic labels. That statement in itself is very profound. Because what your mind tells you is far different than what your heart tells you. It's far different than what your gut tells you. You know, when people say, I have this gut feeling, that gut feeling is your ego. It's your ego. The id, the ego, and the super ego. Watch my videos on the id, the ego, and the super ego. So in here is where the battle goes on. It's like what they refer to as the holy chat. It goes on with it's an eternal war between right and wrong, good and evil, right? Acceptable and unacceptable. The id gets what it wants. The id goes after what it wants, and that's how this situationship happened. Because you convinced yourself, your mind told you, your heart didn't tell you a damn thing. Your mind told you one thing. Your heart told you something else. Just because someone you were associated with romantically, back to the article, or sexually, was never considered your real boyfriend or girlfriend, doesn't mean you can't be upset when that person is no longer in your life. Any degree of interpersonal intimacy can spark feelings of connection, which is something we're more or less hardwired for as a species. When that connection ends, it's completely normal, quote, parenthesis, sorry, not quote, and I'll argue healthy, right? So it's completely normal. It's, and this person is suggesting it's completely healthy to experience a certain amount of pain or loss. A psychopath, a narcissist wouldn't fit into this category because he just wouldn't give a damn. But that connection ended. And that's the part that happens when you sit down with the person who's like upset, angry, crying, or whatever, saying, well, I thought that because we were, and that I meant something to you. It meant something to me. It meant something to me. And like, what? And the one night experience, well, yeah, I was digging you. We was having good conversation. So there was some level of uh, openness, literally, some level of openness to that person. There was something triggered within you by that person's presence, by thoughts of that person, regardless of what it was, whether it was sexual in nature, whether it was something, a good conversation, they were humorous or something like that. But there was something inside of you that was triggered, and you liked it. So be gentle with yourself as you grieve the end of this, well, situation. Watch with curiosity how you speak to yourself and avoid using words or attitudes that you wouldn't use with a beloved friend. If you're feeling down, off, or icky, recognize that you're going through a process of grief and give yourself the support you need to get through it. Write in your journal, talk to a therapist, or double down on your favorite care staples, like spending time outdoors, getting a massage, going to dinner with friends, or making yourself of service to others through things like volunteering or random acts of kindness. We're not going to get to the next one. We're going to get back to that next week. But look at all of these things. These are things that the individuals go through. And we do this all the time. It happens all the time. Where we just think we just having sex. It's great. We're familiar, we're comfortable with each other, and we just doing each other. I'm not really Hey, listen, I ain't gonna be with this dude, this dude, this dude. We just kicking it. You know what I'm saying? No commitment to it. He do what he want to do, what I want. But then as soon as somebody does what they want, we got an issue. It's like Houston, we got a problem, right? Because I did not think that this was going to happen. I thought that it was just going to be me. No commitment. I get it, but that's just nasty, isn't it? But when you look at the whole situation, you have to say to yourself, if it was just this, why do I feel this? You understand? It's just like anything else that you have in the house, your favorite cup, right? When you drink your coffee, you go grab your Aleem cup, your Aleem for you design cup. You go grab it, and there's comfort, right? In that, you say, "Hey, I got my Aleem cup. I'm comfortable." You sit there, you look at the cup, and you begin to just kind of fall back with your head down, relax a little bit. I got my cup. I'm good, right? Anything that you have that you put up on the shelf and you take it down for use when it befits you, benefits you, um, you do that, and you're treating this person in the same capacity, but don't realize no matter which way you cut this, they're still sitting on your shelf. Take them off the shelf. You have to find a replacement. So you're still missing the connection. You're still not seeing how you are actually still connected. Once that person is no longer on the shelf, that means that you have to go through the process now of selecting who's next. And then once you select the other person that's next and you put them on the shelf, now you're making comparisons to who's now on your shelf with the other person who was once up there. And when you see that other person, then you go through these intellectual stuff, spiritual stuff about that person. And these are the kind of things that happen with parents who are in situationships. The perception of the other person, right, weighs more heavier than the obligation that both of these persons are going to have to this child. Seek and resolve to that situation of yourself being involved in this situation, right, has to be first and foremost. You have to resolve this within yourself. And sometimes, depending on the people, sometimes that person you go to, that other party you go to vent about, should be the other parent. Because you may find that the other person didn't actually feels the same way. And you have that conversation about how it's going to change your life. But typically these kind of things get battled out. They come out in very negative senses and hurtful ways towards the other person, as opposed to like let's talk about this because this is how it affects me. This is has affected me. And then the ownership is another part of it that has to be discussed as well, right? Um, this is not the time to discuss differences. This is not the time to talk about, well, I can't, because I don't have enough space, and well, I can't afford. Well, we're past that. We're past that. You're pregnant. We have the child. The child is here. We're past that. You have to make a way. You have to make a way. But oftentimes it doesn't happen this way. Oftentimes what happens is this part of it goes unresolved. And because it goes unresolved, your own individual unresolved trickles down to the other person who also has unresolved about this situationship that you both put yourselves in, We haven't resolved that. And that battle gets fought on the backs of the children because you haven't resolved that first. And until you resolve that first, you can't fix the relationship between you and the other parent. Stop blaming the other parent for being and doing what they were being and doing when you met them. And because you turned a blind eye to circumstances doesn't mean that they're at fault. You come with the nastiest of dispositions, the nastiest of an attitude because of your own dissatisfaction with self. You did this. You did this. Stop saying we did this. Take ownership for your role and fix yourself. Heal yourself from what you failed to do. You're not going to be the first or last person that does something that's against their own values. It's called cognitive dissonance. You think one thing and your mouth says something else and you do something entirely different than what your values represent, so you say. We all do it. You're no different. That's why you got to be gentle on yourself when you approach this. It's not just about you. It's not. Every situation that I've encountered when it comes to co-parenting, when it comes to the conflict and confrontations between mother and father, have to do with personal unresolved, for stuff that has nothing to do with the responsibilities of raising a child. You need to fix that. But in the meantime, the child is being negatively impacted by your ratchet activities, your ratchet behavior, your immaturity, your childlike antics that are being pushed upon the child. Period. Grow up. Grow up. Take responsibility for your role. Take responsibility. Tell your child your responsibility. Tell your child the truth. Stop telling your child about, oh, well, he did this and he don't do this and he don't do that and he ain't this and he ain't that. Talk about you. Talk about how selfish you were in going to sleep with somebody and not having protected sex. Talk about that. Talk about that. You won't talk about that. Because that is the only thing that needs to be talked about. Telling the child how negative things about the other parent is not what you need to be talking about with the child. It's not. You don't want, for what? Because you're trying to defend your own position. You're trying to make yourself look like the victim. Maybe because that's all the hell you've ever seen yourself as being, as a victim. You're a victim. He victimized me. You victimized yourself. You victimized yourself because of decisions you made. You victimized yourself. But you want to make me the perpetrator of wrong upon you. That's easy. Children are suffering. You're suffering. You're making others suffer because you don't want to take ownership for your role in this situation. You don't want to grow up. You don't want to shake off the boy. You don't want to shake off the girl and have a responsible conversation. You don't want to try to understand the other person's anger, the other person's discontent, because it's all about you. That's selfish. Does that benefit the child? You're just like the court system. The court system says that the court is about the best interest of the child. No, it's not. The court system has never been about the best interest of the child. Never. None of these systems that represent child safety do it for the best interest of the child. They do it to cover their behinds. That's what they do. They come to your house, they investigate something somebody else told them. They don't really investigate. They come and ask a bunch of damn questions and they make a determination. And most of them are incompetent. They can't make a decision. Most of them are not clinical. Therefore, they can't even assess a damn situation to see what the needs are for the family. Then they can't even provide the person with resources to ensure that happens. This is not about the best interests of the children. And this is what ultimately winds up stepping in to do something which is supposed to be for the best interest of the child, and the child's life is worsened. So they get no benefit from this system that works at dividing the family, and they get no damn help from the parents. Come on. The child is losing. The child is losing. Hand over fist. All you have to do is take a look at you. All you have to do is go through your grieving process of looking at the position you put yourself in. You put yourself in this situation. You fell for the okie doke. You fell for the slick talk. You fell for it. And you really didn't fall for the slick talk. Guys, I want to bust your ego right now. A woman makes the decision as to whether she wants to give you some or not, and that decision is already made no matter how slick you talk. Because she didn't fall for that, for real, for real. The only ones who fall for that are the ones who have convinced themselves that they need somebody to validate their existence. But every woman out there doesn't need you to validate her existence. So when you get some, don't think it's because you can't wait to right now. What's up, girl? No, you met the criteria. Same thing for women. You met your criteria. That's what I'm talking about. You met your criteria for what? A situationship. Come along and ride on us. Anyway, it's a cruise you don't have to take. Right? So listen, we're at the hour. We're at the hour. This is this is a topic that you have to confront, because if we're going to change the lives of our children, and a lot of this ties into stopping the violence, being available. Both parents have to be available. The DNA comes from both of us. The DNA comes from both of us. They're like you, they're like me. That's nothing to that has nothing to do, right, with the bad decisions we made. We can fix those things. When I'm ready, I'll come. If I'm not ready, you can't force it. Keep the door open, right? Just keep the door open. It's like the Motel 6. We're going to keep the light on for you. But in the meantime, I need to change my attitude. I need to change my perspective. I need to change how I conduct business as a parent. As a parent. Because parent has a role. It's just like employee. I'm my own brand, first and foremost. I represent me. If I work for a company, there's certain conduct that is expected of me. As a single woman, as a single man, there's things that we do, all under the guise of single, right? As a parent is not single. You can be a single parent, but you're a parent, right? So you have single person, you have mother, you have father, you have parenthood, right? Those are different roles. There are expectations in those roles. But you can't just treat a person poorly. You can't just be disrespectful towards a person. You can't just treat a person any kind of way and think that it's going to be okay, and think that relationship between the other parent and the child is going to improve, because they want to stay the hell away from you. Because in so many instances, you'll have me in prison before you have me in your house sitting with my child because of your own stuff. Yeah, because of your own stuff. Because you haven't accepted your own irresponsible actions. Because that's what we're being when we have unprotected sex with somebody who we're not committed to, who we just find ourselves in a situationship with, who we found at the club, who dropped it like it was hot. We went home, we did the do, and now we have a child. Come on, people, stop playing. Stop playing. Stop playing. You know, stop playing. Listen, it's really easy. Children's lives are at stake. Your own life is at stake to continue to live this way. It's just a reality, man. Listen, we're gonna follow back up next week on this subject matter. We were talking about how to recover from a situation. I'm gonna see y'all next Saturday, 9 o'clock. Y'all have a great one. Peace. Oh my gosh, it was like no other. Baby, just know that I'm locked in. You locked in. We both locked in forever and ever and ever. Baby, I'm never leaving you. Guess what? You're captured. She was easy to talk to, a great sense of humor. Shared intimate stories, how men groomed and doomed to her. Promised me right from the start she had a plan. Being my one and only, me being her man. On the phone for hours, every week fresh flowers. Often reminding her the world can be ours. When first we made love, after drinks and dinner, I thought for sure had me a winner. Representative disappears, another woman fractured. Wasted all my years, once again I'm captured. Representative disappears, another woman fractured. Wasted all my years, once again I'm captured. I'm deep inside of her, my secrets I confide in her. Jealousy's arising her, unresolved trauma riding her. Dissonance driving her, past betrayals blinding her. Wanted me minding her, bad habits how unkind to her. Wanted me to sacrifice all of myself. Get lost in her love and nothing else. Said she'd give me a chance to win her love, my dreams, no matter she was above. Representative disappears, another woman fractured. Wasted all my years, once again I'm captured. Representative disappears, another woman fractured. Wasted all my years, once again I'm captured. Rhythmic quivers, satisfying sighs. Standing up in it, hear her passionate cries. Painfully pleasing, falling into the abyss. Lord, I never knew a love like this. Fall back in ecstasy, acrobatic shift. A clit in my mouth, her hips start to lift. Her juices on my chin, 2 fingers take a dip. A hand from my head, mine gripping her hip. Representative disappears, another woman fractured. Wasted all my years, once again I'm captured. Representative disappears, another woman fractured. Wasted all my years, once again I'm captured. The feeling's irreplaceable, indescribable at best. For her it's all or nothing, of me it's all a test. Her insecurities beyond measure, her heart I do treasure, leaving me never wasting means clever, exploring innate tendencies, no doubt a true connection, all mere desires, superficial affection. Somehow this turns into love, not just a chance encounter. Ass and elbows before me, wanting me to mount her. Representative disappears, another woman fractured. Wasted all my years.
Hey,
once
make
again
sure
I'm
y'all check out
captured.
Aline for
Representative
you.
disappears, another woman
Yeah.
fractured.
.com.
Wasted all my
You gotta
years.
check
once
me out,
again
man.
I'm
You gotta check me
captured.
out. You gotta check
Been
me out.
married before, all who I did
Yeah, you gotta
adore.
check me out,
All
man.
ended the same, me walking out the door.
Yeah.
Sexual satisfaction, just a distraction. Time to problem solve, victim reaction. Every conversation laden with accusation. Quiet as is kept is just her frigid adaptation. Sex is what she wants, a lover of her own. Commitment has her haunted again, she's all alone. Representative disappears, another woman fractured. Wasted all my years, once again I'm captured. Representative disappears, another woman fractured. Wasted all my years, once again I'm captured. I'm captured, I'm captured, I'm captured. Once again I'm captured. I'm captured, I'm captured, I'm captured. Once again I'm captured.
Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next Saturday, 9 a.m. Again, this is your host, Sabir Lim. Y'all have a great, wonderful weekend. Peace.